Thanks, Joanne. I mean, a good red lip goes a long way, so I'll be sure to put your tips into practice for my next look of success. And for all our trailblazers, we have a 15% off voucher from Mac online store using the promo code SOH2021. Happy shopping! So we're almost at the end of our event, which means it's time to discover different perspectives with our panel discussion. The topic is about finding the balance and knowing when and how to say no to the things that can cause stress and eventually lead to burnout. We cannot deny that women have made great strides in society and in the workplace over the years, but we are still on a long journey for reaching gender parity in many places of influence. With women needing to work harder and contest with barriers such as harassment and burnout to get to their peak of success, it can be emotionally and psychologically taxing. So, how do we take care of ourselves while pursuing our unstoppable success? Sometimes it can be as simple as saying no. Joining me to have an in-depth discussion about how we can be successful and mentally healthy is Momentum Metropolitan CMO Nontokoza Madonsela, specialist psychiatrist Dr. Jessica Stanbridge, and Momentum Corporate CMO Kwawekazi Madikane. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
I am so happy to have all of you on the panel today. Ladies, you're looking lovely in your red, yellow, and pink. Who likes to say no?
Blue.
Thank you, honey.
We're
I'll take that.
We're color blocking.
Who likes to say no?
Who likes to say no? It's a scary thing. It's a daunting thing to say.
It's a scary thing. So for our guests at home, you can also weigh in on the conversation by adding questions in the chat. So our topic is called No is a Full Sentence. Tell us what this means to you.
Yeah.
Do you also believe that no is a full sentence, and why? So, Nonto, I think I'm going to start with you. Question 1. I'm sorry, you're just popping in that yellow. So, Nonto, welcome back. We've had beautiful discussions, and you've moved us with your poetry, especially that personal bit today. And at the center of it all, it's about being confident in stepping into your power and owning your success. But does that pursuit of our next accomplishments and achievements come at neglecting our mental health sometimes?
I think it does, although it shouldn't, but I think it does. I think that it also is very much dependent on the culture. If you work in corporate, what you think is expected of you in the organization where you're working, how sometimes the imposter syndrome kind of gets you going back and going and putting aside time you need for yourself because you think you might not be seen to be performing at the right level. But for me, I think that I understand my body and I understand myself. And there's been moments, I remember there was a meeting once where in the boardroom during Exco in my previous job, I was not feeling okay. You know, when you feel like you are fading, you are shaking. I went to the bathroom and I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, I've got to go on holiday. I cannot do this anymore. I've got to take a break.
Yeah.
I got back to the meeting. I told my boss, and my words were, I need to go on holiday unless you are prepared to come and bury me in a few days.
Sure.
I need to go on holiday.
Yeah.
And I took a break because the emails will never end. The deadlines will never end. The expectations will never end. And I think being ambitious, we want to do good. We want to be seen to be going above and beyond. But if it comes at a detriment to a person and to you, and it costs you your mental wellness, what's the point of it all?
What's the point?
What's
I think
the point of it
Simone
all?
even mentioned it in her workshop earlier, just reminding us that self-love and self-care cannot just be cute hashtags on Instagram.
Exactly.
It is the difference between a
Definitely.
quality life and, like you say,
Yeah.
at its worst, death.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what, Sherlyn? For me, there are days even where I'm like in my pajamas over the weekend, the whole day, Saturday to Sunday, and all I'm doing is just watching what I want to watch, hanging out with my children, and that's enough because I need that breather and that moment, and to not feel the pressure to go and be with friends or, you know, be outside and done up and dress properly. And we're allowed to feel like that.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
And not just on Women's Day, not just during Women's Month, not just when we're having these conversations on the red couch. Whenever you need to feel that feeling, feel it, eh?
And I like what Nonto has just said. You know, you need to define for yourself what self-care looks like for
What does
yourself.
self-care look like to you, madam? Because you look like you have it down. This lady knows how to take
That's
care
the
of
look
herself.
for today. But for me, when I think of taking care of myself, it's really going on the road and going for a run. Literally saying, hubby, take care of the 2-year-old. I'm going out for a 5K run so that I can have time just to think about the day. I make a lot of decisions when I'm out on the road going for a run. Sometimes it's just going out with a girlfriend, connecting at a spa for the afternoon, where we're just literally doing nothing but having a few glasses of bubbly and just reconnecting and talking about challenges that we're both facing. And that's when really, you know, you need to, I think, go to your trusted advisors to seek advice and to seek therapy. Therapy doesn't have to be a life coach or somebody who's got the qualifications to do that. It could be your best friend, it could be your mom. So for me, it's really about just taking time off, going to a spa, going for a run.
And finding those good spaces.
Yeah,
Love that.
yeah.
Dr. Jess, do you think people focus too much on succeeding financially that they don't tend to their own mental health in the same manner?
I think definitely. I think that we've kind of glamorized this idea of productivity and achievement and acquisition, and I think that finances are part of that. And I think that a lot of people have subsequently been trying to reach those financial goals and subsequently kind of denied their mental health along the way. And I think that what people need to realize is that we're such multifaceted human beings, and that, yes, obviously financial stability and security and achievements in our careers are important, and they're parts of who we are. But the other things are also really, really important in our lives, and that's things like our partnerships, our families, obviously our mental health, our physical health, and even things that don't get glamorized at all, like relaxation and joy and creativity and fun. And we need to just remember that, yes, finances are obviously quite a tangible thing that we often go after, but it's also okay to prioritize these other things that are just as important. And when we do, what we're doing is we're putting energy back into ourselves, and then what we're doing in that regard is that we're really caring for our own mental health as well.
Yeah.
That's actually some feedback that I got from my therapist during our last session. Sherlyn, you need to prioritize fun.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It's
And
important.
sometimes we need someone to tell us,
Yeah,
sis, you are
absolutely.
working too hard. Money is nice, but mental health.
Absolutely. And that prioritizing fun is a form of success as well, to be able to go out and have fun and relax is as successful as financial gain.
Yeah,
I think it's
I've got a
important
boss
to
who
remember.
usually says, celebrate the little things.
Yeah.
She's sitting right next to me.
Yes.
Very wise.
And we are celebrating after the end of this event because, wow, it's taken long hours.
I'm sure.
It's taken
Yeah,
grafting, but I also think that we work so hard to have fun. We've got to enjoy. We've got to kind of look at each other in the eye and be like, thank you for that. And Sherlyn, here's a glass of champagne, girl. You
Cheers.
brought
I
it home.
receive
You're
bubbles.
ready for it.
Now, Kawekazi, to your division now.
Yeah.
Momentum Corporate has done a study that covers a lot about how the world of work has changed since we faced the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the key insights is about burnout, something that we've been talking a lot, burnout. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, especially in the context of women who have to balance their work and their home lives? And also, aren't we tired of this question? We never ask men about this balance, of work and life. But apologies, but I must ask you.
It's fine. I'm happy to share and unpack the insights.
Yeah.
So, you know, Momentum Corporate is a division within Momentum, and we are in the business of providing employee benefits for our employers or our clients. So we conducted this research to really unpack the relationship between employers and their employees. And what the research tells us is some really valuable insights. First thing that it tells us is that women between the ages of 40 and 49 years old are twice as more likely to have mental health related claims than their male counterparts. It's a scary fact.
So is it that women are talking more, or is it just that we are faced with more?
It's that we are faced with more, and I think what COVID-19 has done is to just accelerate or elevate or heighten how much more pressure we are under as women. There are a few things that we, or insights that we unpacked. One of those things is that still the gender gap or pay gap in the corporate world is one of those contributing factors that leads to this type of burnout. Because what you find is that women then tend to want to work, or have to work actually, twice as hard to prove their worth than their male counterparts. So what ends up happening? You work those long hours, which leads to what? Burnout. And
homeschooling. Imagine, because I had to become a teacher in my house. And homeschooling is something that's added another task for women to do during COVID days.
And nobody asked you,
Yes.
It's just expected, but you must.
Exactly. And it's just, the second thing that we've actually uncovered is that, yes, there's this gender gap and pay gap or remuneration gap that happens, but also if you think about South Africa and our culture, you find a lot of single-headed households that are led by who? Women. And during COVID, what has unfortunately happened is that some of those women have had pay cuts. It's the reality that we live in. So what women have had to do is to find the side hustle to supplement their income. So that just to make ends meet. So what does that mean? More burnout. Now you've got a 9-to-5, then you come back home, you have to look after your child, there's homeschooling, then you also need to do your side hustle in the evening, whether you're a makeup artist or photographer, editing pictures. So there's just a lot of pressure that's put on women, especially during COVID. And those are the insights that we unpacked.
And also remember that with lockdown, we couldn't travel. So some of us couldn't have the individuals who support us at home. So UCC is stuck in KZN and can't get on the bus when we had the extreme levels of lockdown. Even getting, my mom to come from KZN was not possible. So we had to learn to manage and try doing mathematics for grade 3 and then making sure that your child in grade 10 does science properly and you don't even know half the things that they're studying about. And then be in the meeting on time and then open the gate when there's a delivery from Momentum Corporate at the gate.
Did any of these findings surprise you?
I would say, honestly, as a wife, a mother, an exec, not at all. I am this woman. I'm between the ages of 40 and 49. I'm 42. This is my life.
I feel like, as you just said, I am this woman, the woman watching. Me too.
Me too.
I am that
too,
woman too.
You feel the pressure to just show up at your best all the time. And I'm not going to lie to you, it's not just about society that has got these unrealistic expectations on us as women. We, ourselves as women, have got unrealistic expectations on ourselves. Guys, we put ourselves under too much pressure to just show up at our best at all times, to be excellent at everything. And it's impossible. It's impossible to be excellent at everything.
So how do we stop this? And I'm so happy that you mentioned that. Also, what we do as women to perpetuate this cycle.
Yeah.
So how do we stop being our own enemies on top of all of the actual enemies out there as well, Doctor?
Yeah. I think that when we talk about boundaries, which is part of this session as well, and learning to say no, it's about learning to say no externally, but it's also about learning to say no internally. So really getting to know ourselves and realizing, listen, we are pushing ourselves beyond our capability. We have these expectations on ourselves that are completely not realistic. We can't perform 100% of the time in all the factors of our lives, being able to be perfect and trying to kind of get into this space of feeling like we're enough in all of our roles. And I think that the one way that we do that is we start to look at ourselves a little bit with some self-compassion to realize how much we're trying to balance, and that if we're not getting it 100% right all the time, it's okay. Because I think that with all of the stuff we're trying to balance, when we add the self-critic on board who's telling us, you're not doing it perfectly enough, you need to be better, you need to be a better mother, you need to be a better person within the workplace, it just perpetuates the cycle. So I do think that self-compassion is part of it. And then it's about flexing this muscle of learning how to say no where we can. And I know that it's not always possible. COVID hasn't allowed us to say no to teaching our children. We've had to step up and learn how to do mathematics.
Imagine, no, I don't want to help you with your mathematics.
I need time
Listen,
out.
I've had to be okay with the report that hasn't been great. I remember sitting in front of my my son's grade 3 teacher, and she's like, you know, like some of the homework wasn't done right. And in my head, I'm like rolling my eyes. I'm like, do you want to be in my home? Actually,
I'm doing the best I can.
The best I can. It's only grade 3, for goodness sake.
Yes, you know.
And the world is going through COVID. So if he's living until whatever, and they're talking about how grade 3 wasn't a good year for him, there'll be many other kids who'll be like, not mine too. Because they're all going through COVID. We're all going through COVID.
And we are.
Definitely.
You've said something that is quite, I think, powerful, Doc. You said that it's a muscle. You mentioned something around that, the fact that there's this muscle. Meaning that, you know, it's not easy to just say no and do it. I mean, my life coach kept saying to me, Q, just do it. But it's not easy to just say no. You need to train yourself to say no. And it takes you just starting. Just start. Do it once, and you learn to build that confidence to just confidently say no, because you know how important it is at the fundamental or at the basic of it. It's just the best thing to do for yourself, because it's about looking after yourself and your mental health.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
And I agree, I like that analogy of the muscle.
It's a muscle.
You can
train
train
muscles.
it. You can go to gym.
Yeah.
We practice.
Yes.
We have workouts,
Yeah.
and we learn to say no.
Yeah.
So how comfortable, on a scale from 1 to 10, are you with that word no?
Right now, I am 8. I'm on
8
an
out of 10.
8 out of
Okay.
10. And for me, it took me going to therapy, seeing my life coach,
Exercising the muscle.
to exercise that muscle, and also to give me the tools that will help me in the conversations that I need to have, because communication and dialogue as part of this conversation is very important. You can't just say no and be insensitive to people. You need to find the how. It's the how you say no.
Absolutely.
So you need the right tools to be able to help you, you know, with the words that will land softly when you're saying no. And also, you can't just say no and walk away.
Yeah.
You need to say no within certain boundaries, but also give people examples as to why you're saying no. You know, give them a reason. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So-
And I think, Doctor, you mentioned this earlier. So yes, no is a full sentence.
Yeah.
However, additional sentences will often have to follow.
Absolutely. I think that it needs to start a conversation, and we were talking about this earlier, is that when you say no, you start to talk about why it's important for you to say no in this scenario, why you need it, and how you and the other person, or you and the scenario at hand, can find a balance so that you both feel like you're being heard, but that your boundaries are being respected within it as well.
I want to just say that for me, you asked where we see ourselves on a scale of 1 to 10.
Oh, give me your number, Nontu.
Well, the thing is, it depends.
Okay, I like that.
So I want to bring another layer here, because when people experience stress and burnout, sometimes it's because of the other layers of their lives. So there is stress and burnout from work where we need to manage, but there is also stress and burnout because of your extended family, expectations of you financially, etc., your children, and the rest of the characters in your life. So I find that for me, with my family, we spoke about the call I had with a person in my team who said, and she was so exhausted by it all, because she said, how do I tell my family when they're phoning that actually, Andinayo, I have no capacity or ability to respond to your request in the way you want. And some of these requests are of money. So when your family is saying, well, there is this need back home, wherever home is, and because you are the successful one, you're in Johannesburg, you have your own property, you drive a car, and you do good hair, and you got good nails, whatever else. So they're like, the answer when there is this need is let's phone Unos Banbani in Johannesburg. And it's hard because now the level of anxiety and pressure you feel when you know that actually my bank balance it can only take me so much. Now to have to cut it up and give to that need here and that need there is difficult. But because of how we are raised, it's finding words to say to that uncle or that grandmother or that sister that not to disrespect you and not to undermine the need, but I actually cannot offer that money.
So on the one hand, there's your reality, your financial reality. On the other hand, there's tradition and culture and certain expectation and often conflict. I hear that.
Like when you mention tradition and culture, I'm like, a story for another day. Can we unpack that?
Because that's a whole TED talk.
That's a whole conversation.
But let me tell you the tip that when it comes to money, saying no to people requesting money, family, when it's hard to say no, I cheat myself in terms of that internal no you said we've got to give ourselves. So say somebody asks for 1,000 rand. I will be like, let me think about it and think, shoot, I can't really say no, but maybe let me offer 400 rand. It's better than nothing. So what I do is I will offer half or slightly less than half of what is requested. Then I don't feel guilty. And I feel like at least I gave something.
Is it easier for you to say no to
I think
family?
Kalagazi just does say no.
Because that is like, I want to say no, but here's 400 rand.
Boundaries.
So is it easier for you to say no, or because that's also relatable content? Sometimes it's a lot more difficult to say no to family. Are you able to?
I am able to. I'm able to. It's I don't know. It's just part of who I am, and anyone who knows me, who's close to me, knows that that's just how I live my life. It's within boundaries. It doesn't matter whether you're family through in-law, husband, daughter. It's important for me to manage my mental health and well-being, because I remember there was a time when I broke down, where I had my dream job back in 2014, and I walked away from my dream job. Remember, it's important also to have or to surround yourself with people that call you out on your BS, people who are going to tell you the truth. So during the time when I was launching this big brand, my dream job, my best friend at the time said, we need a break. We went to Bali, and during that trip, we were literally sitting on the beach, and she said to me, you have changed. For the past 2 days, you have been talking about this job and how much you hate it, but then you've always said it's your dream job. People, surround yourself with people that are going to call you out. By the time I came back to South Africa, I quit, and I decided to take a sabbatical. And I said no to my dream job. Why? Because I realized that person who called me out on my BS, being my best friend, cares for me so much. I had to just prioritize myself and try something else.
And again, what can be more important than you
your mental health?
prioritizing yourself?
And a whole lot of things started happening. I found myself again. I started running again. I gained so much weight. And remember, when we are not showing up as our true selves, what do? We find those vices. We find those bad habits, the things that help us to cope. And I was starting to do that. And it is not healthy.
Come through with the tough love, sister. Come through.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to your bestie. What's her name?
Hello, Kolosa.
Hello, Kolosa.
Maid of honor at my wedding. Yeah, she's a person who is real. Real talk is very important.
Love that.
When it comes
so
to that.
Dr. Burnout, something that we're talking about a lot, especially during this pandemic. How do I know, one, I'm tired, or actually, no, I'm not tired. you are burnt out.
Yeah.
Big difference. What is that difference?
It is a big difference. So burnout in itself is a kind of, it's a syndrome or disorder, and it's got to do with the fact that, yes, you are tired, you're both mentally and physically really, really tired, but there's also this kind of underlying negativity that you feel about everything in your life. So things that used to bring you joy or your work, there's just a negativity that you feel around it, and then it impacts your functioning. So you're so tired, you're so exhausted, you're feeling so negative that you can't work to the best of your capability, and you can't engage in your relationships in the same way either. So burnout is a little bit different to exhaustion. And then it's also about figuring out, is this something that I need to be concerned about, and when do I decide that I want to intervene with regards to it? So do we wait until we're so burnt out that we're not functioning at all, or do we do something about it earlier? And I think that it's really important that we start to notice the signs and symptoms that things are not going really well a lot earlier, and start to put things in place then, so that we don't get to the point that we're so absolutely exhausted that we can't function to the best of our ability anymore. And to be honest, I do that in my daily life. I check in with regards to how burnt out I am on a daily basis. Every morning I think to myself, what is my capacity like? Does it feel like I have enough energy within me to face my day? Does it feel like I can take something else on? Does it feel like I need to work my no muscle a little bit today? What can I do to bring energy inwards? And if you're doing that and doing like regular check-ins on yourself and making sure that you're putting things in your life to prevent burnout, then we never get to the point that we feel like it impacts.
And how great to do that at the start of every morning. You kind of set yourself up. This is the tone.
Sherlyn, I just want to say that one of the things, because I usually ask myself, what role do I play in creating burnout in my team, for my team? But also that I create an opportunity when we gather. Guys will knows this, and the rest of the team knows this, where we check in. And the check-in for us has a question that says, how are you doing really? You know, that it isn't the, how are you doing? I'm fine. How was the weekend? It was great. It is. And the emphasis is on really. And we create a space where each person can say, and it's not about work, it's about where the person is in that moment. And I love it when people say, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm not sleeping, I feel like I'm not catching up with my emails, I feel like I'm lagging behind, or actually my baby kept me up all night, or my mom is not well, or I don't know, like for me the geyser isn't working and nobody can figure out what's going on, and to kind of bring those conversations so that we can support each other better, and give each other empathy as well. So I think the role we play as leaders is very important.
Absolutely. I want to just add, as part of the check-in that we do at Exco, yes, you ask, how are you doing really? And then the follow-up question is, how can we support you?
So wonderful.
Which is, for me, the key question. Support structures when it comes to saying no, finding those right boundaries and whatnot is very important. Find the right support structures.
And you know, you're giving such a gift to your team, because we talk about these things like boundaries and saying no, but we're doing that on an individual capacity. But when you're creating a team structure that is more systemic, where you're talking about things like, are you struggling? How can I support you? You're giving people permission to be transparent about the things that they're struggling with. You're giving people permission to be able to say, I need help, and then offering them that support. And long-term, in a company like you're working in, that's how you will prevent burnout with people that you work with. It's a huge
And
gift.
Nonto, I'm hoping that you are not the only manager having these conversations.
No, actually, it's
and I'm
become
not
a
just
thing
talking
we do.
about your company. I'm talking about
that's
all
generally.
companies, whatever industry you are in.
Yeah.
Managers, bosses, these are the kind of conversations that need to be happening. So this is a question for the entire panel. How do you manage your burnout, or do you only realize you burnt out once it's too late? Now, this question hits very close to home. Last year, I was feeling a little bit tired, or what I thought was a little bit tired. I'm going to go to a psychologist. I'll go next week, I'll go next week. Eventually, I'm so tired, and I go, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what, after 1 hour, I'll be fixed. I'll be good to go again. And I had waited too long. So when I finally opened up to this therapist, I completely broke down. So what was supposed to be a 1-hour conversation and then just going back into my routine meant that I had a full-blown breakdown. I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. I suddenly had a psychologist and a psychiatrist. You know, and so that's why this is so important for us to talk about, because I don't want anyone to go for a check-in only to find out that you babes, you are actually going to rebuild now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So for me, I even joke about it when I talk to my friends, because I have learned that if you need medical support, get it. And don't be embarrassed. And, you know, I suffer from insomnia. And I went for therapy, and I had to learn to, you know, like stop being on the phone at this hour, try to, you know, like do things that will calm my mind and relax me. And then on an odd occasion, I do need sleeping pills because my brain goes and doesn't stop. And actually, I would rather I sleep properly and sleep well than be embarrassed to ask for medical help. So I know that for myself. And the other thing I do is that on the weekends, I decided to have 2 phones. There's a work phone and there's a private phone.
That's smart.
Like properly on the weekend, I don't even know where my work phone is.
Switch off.
If the battery dies, it dies. The people in my team who need to get hold of me have both my numbers. And if it's a crisis, they will get hold of me on my private line. So even when I go for walks in the afternoon, I leave all my phones in the house. And I tell my family that I'm going for a walk, I don't have my phones, and they know the route I'm going to take. Because I just want to be present and breathe and see that the trees are changing, the green leaves are coming out, the neighbor's house painted a different color. It frightens me when I'm not even noticing the change around me.
Sure.
You know, there are moments where I paint, because I love painting my nails bright colors, and I change it up every 2 weeks. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I haven't appreciated my nail polish. Like, I even forgot what color I painted, like, properly. Where I'm like, because it was just a thing. They painted, I was in a meeting, and then did it, because she comes to my house, and then got on with the kids, and then got on with the dinner, and I'm like, it's been 2 days. I have not appreciated the color.
Small things,
Because-
like the beautiful
Exactly.
shade of nail polish. I love that. Now, doctor, when we talk about broken arms and legs and medication, people are like, of course, shot, I get it. However, when we talk about mental health and taking medication, I mean, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of stigma. When I decided to share about the fact that I'm on medication for my anxiety, shoo.
Yeah, I hear you. There really, really is. If I can say that the one narrative that I see a lot when people come to see me and they've been struggling and I need to start them on medication, the usual answer that I get from patients is that I so wish I had done this sooner. And it's this thing of feeling like they've had to suffer for so long by themselves, and then realizing there's this thing that we can do and this intervention that we have, it can make you feel so much better. But because of the shame and the stigma and feeling like I need to be tough and strong and keep going and I can sort it out myself, that they just keep persevering. And by the time they land up in my office, they've obviously been struggling for a really, really long time. And then they have some relief for their symptoms and they just think, oh my word, I wish I had done this sooner. And I think that what I try to say is that we need to start looking at mental health issues the same way as we would physical issues. You have a body, you have a brain. The way you look after your body, you need to be looking after your brain as well. If you have a broken bone and you need a surgery, you would do that. Mental health issues are as biological, as neurological as anything else. And so if you need medication, then you must do that.
For the people at the back, because they're there.
I really love what you've just said, because you know, as a marketer, you know, you are on a lot of social media platforms just to check what's happening from a cultural point of view, what's the newsworthy topics and whatnot. And within just the Black community, you know, this has become such a topical issue. Depression, mental wellness, seeking therapy when you're not feeling well. And it's important just to have these conversations, even if they take place on social media, because someone is sharing their story and their journey, and in so doing, helping somebody else.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
You never know who listens.
And you
eh?
never know who's listening now, to know that you've been through this. You know, a lot of us have been through so much, and it's important to share our stories and our journeys, because you don't know who you are actually going to assist at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we offer people such a gift when we're so transparent about our own struggles. And I mean, all of you are doing that so beautifully,
Yeah.
but people can see themselves in you, and they can see the things that they can do to seek help and try to get better, or work with their burnout, or work with their anxiety and depression.
It's important as leaders also to just be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Something that hashtag boss lady says all the time. That it's important as leaders just to show up and be vulnerable when you feel the need to be vulnerable. Show up and you know, inform your team that actually I'm not having a good day today. I've got a lot on my plate. Delegate. Guys, you won't find me between this hour and that hour just because I just need to, you know, switch off.
So when it comes to fighting burnout, I mean, Nonto, you mentioned going for lovely walks, you mentioned your running. What other things do you do to combat burnout? And this is a question to the entire panel.
So for me, I always have this saying that, you know, you need to seek therapy. And I did mention that therapy is not just going to a professional therapist or a life coach or whatnot. We all have girlfriends, and girlfriends for different seasons and reasons. For me, that's how sometimes I manage my burnout. I know who to go to. I know which friend is a prayer partner. I know which friend was going to assist me if I'm dealing with something that's just creating some turmoil in my life, you know, within my professional career. So talking about it to whether it's a girlfriend or my mother, it helps me. Yes, my running is one of those ways for me to just manage my burnout, but also just deciding, like Nonto said, switch off your cell phone and just switch off from the world for a bit.
And what if your boss doesn't like that?
But if especially during the weekend, I mean, you can do it during the weekend because that's when we're really mostly on.
Some bosses want to touch you on your weekends as well, hey?
People
are struggling. I'm finding my friends who are working from home, they are
Really?
working longer hours now.
You know what it is? You need to establish boundaries.
You're going to say the B
from
word.
the get-go. You can't, when you're starting a new relationship and you're in your new job, just when you sit across the table with your boss and you're negotiating your scope of work, job to be done, all of those things, that's when you have these conversations. Just like when you're starting to date a man. You're not going to say to that man 5 years down the line, oh, actually, I would love to have kids. And the next thing he says, I don't want to have any kids. You need to establish these boundaries from the get. That's what the cool kids say on social media.
From the get.
From the get-go, guys. From the onset, from the beginning, have the conversations that are difficult.
But now I've got a question for you, and Nonto, you can answer this. So I get you. Boundaries from the get.
Yes.
But now what if 5 years into a relationship, professional or romantic, I find that I'm not happy with how things are going. Am I able to renegotiate boundaries in the middle of, you know,
Yeah. So
and how does that work?
Great question.
Yeah, so like, you know what I wanted to say, to Kaloga's point about setting boundaries, I think that often some of these things are self-imposed.
Yes.
What do I mean by that? I've had a boss before, many moons ago, who came from America, used to be a senior person in the army, and the way he works, he emails at 2 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock, And the thing I decided to do, it was my decision. He would email at 11 p.m. I wouldn't respond at 11. I would say, good morning, at 8. Because actually, he's not emailing me at 11 expecting me. It was never his expectation. But other individuals felt that they needed to keep up with his emails. So when he emails at 11, I must respond at 10 past 11. When he emails on Saturday at 12, I must respond. I mean, sometimes if he's got thoughts in his mind, he would phone on Saturday, like the one time, true story, he decided to phone on Saturday at 8. And I looked at their phone and I said, I'm having breakfast with my children. I did not take the call. And on that Saturday, I decided to phone him at 11. And I said, hey, I see I missed your call at 8. And we had a conversation. I was not in trouble. He was not upset. And he did not expect me to answer the call when he phoned. He just thought I would. But when I didn't, I was never penalized for it. So I think sometimes we think that bosses are wanting us and to run like that, and meanwhile they don't. But also the thing for me is that I've had bosses where if I am transparent about how I'm not coping, that I would have nothing but support. So sometimes we also are afraid and to share. So for me, even when I was going through the divorce that I spoke to about earlier on, or we're going to deal with issues with the kids and agreeing which, who's going to have a child when, and sometimes those moments are emotionally draining. And so, but my boss, I would tell them and share what I'm going through to the extent that I'm comfortable. But I cannot get the support I need if they don't know what I am going through and what I am dealing with. So it is my responsibility to invite them in, because they are not monsters.
They're people.
They are people.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
I love what you've just said, Nonto, because for me, to summarize it, you teach people how to treat you.
Yes.
Plain and simple. Set the standards, set the boundaries, teach people how to treat you, and people will just fall in line. And guess what? You might be opening them up to actually share more with you by setting those boundaries. They'll say, actually, listen, Q, because we all have blind spots. Someone might say, I don't like the way you do this, boss. And it's just about teaching people to treat you, how to treat you.
Absolutely.
So communicate.
Definitely. And just to bring it back to your question, I mean, it's wonderful if we've established that from the beginning of, I'm teaching you from the very beginning how to treat me. But if we've decided now, okay, we've learned a little bit about boundaries, we're learning a little bit about saying no, I want to start putting them down, how are we going to work that muscle? How are we going to reestablish a new kind of pattern? I think I often say to my patients that when we start doing things that are good for us, we think it's going to feel good, but it actually doesn't feel good. And
Uncomfortable.
So it feels really, really uncomfortable. So when you start saying, no, listen, I can't answer my phone on the weekends, and this is a new thing that I'm going to establish for myself, it's going to feel really, really uncomfortable. And you have to just sit in that uncomfortable feeling and know that you're doing something that's good for you, and you're reestablishing a new pattern. And I think that then you build the muscle, and then it becomes a little bit easier each time you do it. But it's learning that you're going to feel guilt. It's going to be uncomfortable, but do it anyway.
And I'm
Train
so
the
happy that
muscle.
you said that, because maybe someone's going to say no, feel terrible, and say,
then say
I'm
yes.
never doing that again. It is normal. It's supposed to feel uncomfortable.
But like when I feel, we didn't talk about children. Saying no to my children is so hard.
Okay, mama.
But because you know what? Kids can make their own plans without you. And the guilt of, Mom, Kawekazi and I wanted to have a sleepover this weekend. And I'm thinking, of all weekends, this weekend, I am not going to have 2 kids running around and needing, to be hosted and entertained. And to have to say to my babies, you know what, we can have this another time. Because, Mom is needing to do whatever. It is really difficult. Even saying no when they want you to take them somewhere. Because you're thinking, I'm really not in that space right now. But it's a muscle that I am exercising.
And Nonto, do you find that your kid responds easier to that no the more times you've said no?
No, not my little one. He's 9. So I've had to deal with grumpiness, with fine, you don't want to do this. Why don't you just let me live in the streets then?
There's such drama queens.
I'm like, actually, you're welcome to go and live in the streets. Let's see how that works.
I can relate. I've got a 2-year-old who's obsessed with chips.
Chips.
Knickknacks.
Okay.
So that's all she wants. She doesn't like sweets or anything else. But when she comes home, or when you open that cupboard that she knows that's where we keep the chips, Mama, chips, Mama, chips. It doesn't matter what time of day. And for me, having to say no to her, it breaks my heart. But yeah, it's something that we're learning, exercising that muscle, Doc.
I think it's also important to remember that then as mothers, when you're saying no to your kids, you are teaching them to say no when they need to.
That's a very good
Even
point.
though it's uncomfortable for you in the
Yeah.
moment and it's hard and you don't want to let your kids down, you want them to have a really good no muscle so that they can go
Yeah.
out into the world and put their own boundaries down.
Okay, I'm going to
A no muscle. I like that.
A no
To
muscle.
receive the word no
Yes.
and to say the word no.
I like that.
So, Nontu, this one is for you. It's been found that women only apply. Oh, I hate this. Oh, I really hate this. Let me start from the start. Women only apply for jobs when they meet 100% of the requirements in the job spec. And from our poll today, 26% of women say they will only apply for a job when they meet 100% of the job requirements. But doesn't that mean we're overqualified for the job? Also, how do we as women build confidence in our abilities and just go for it instead of waiting for the perfect time and that perfect opportunity? Because we know our male counterparts are not waiting to be 100%. They go.
Yeah. So, like the thing that I've often said that I've had that issue myself, where people have come to me saying, oh, why don't you apply for that? I'd be like, really? But I'm not there yet. I feel like I'm here. But what's interesting is that when you start to ask the question, Sherlyn, why do you think I should apply to run the restaurant? And give Sherlyn an opportunity to say, I've observed you. You're good with this and you host people well. And every time that you kind of around the restaurant, there's a buzz and da-da. So actually, friend, you can run, take on this job or apply for this job. So for me, I would say the way to deal with that is when somebody suggests, because often those opportunities, because we know we don't meet 100%, we don't see them.
Yeah.
So, Kalagazi does not see that she could apply to run a restaurant because she's thinking, I've only got 60% of what's required in the job. So if I come and nudge her and think about going for that job, it is great if Kalagazi says, tell me more, what do you think I have? But she's also got to be able to hear me and to give it a go. And I find the worst thing that could happen, when you think, what's the worst thing that could happen? Is that they're going to say no. Because there is a panel. You are not going to demand that you are given a job. You will go through several rounds of interviews. You will have to do assessments. You may be asked to do a case study, and you may be surprised that actually you get through the process and you are fit for the job. So I wrote on my LinkedIn post the other day that when I got appointed to do this role, because I didn't think I was ready to be group CMO.
Oh, that imposter monster, eh?
Properly. I asked my boss at the time, when I started on my first job, I asked, why did you hire me? Why? What was it about me that made you feel that I was good for this job? And he told me, we loved what you did where you worked. We loved the what's your next campaign that you had done wherever you worked before. We are looking for brands to be reinvigorated, and we're wanting somebody who's going to kind of get Metropolitan and Momentum right and blah, blah, blah. And we need the capability of the marketing team to do. So I knew in a way that, so the qualities I demonstrated, what they want is they're looking for a fixer, they're looking for a strategic person, they're looking for marketing that is grounded on human truths. And so I was able to bring that to this role and have the confidence that I qualified for it. And they knew what they're doing.
What a great hire, hey? Thank you so much, ladies, for helping me unpack this topic. And hopefully it'll be easier for us all to say that one word, no.
Full sentence.
So before we wrap things up, some of our guests have some questions for Lovey of House Jones, first of her name, assassin of the alphabet, bestseller of books, conqueror of copies, dame of diction, critic of culture, sorceress of side-eye, eater of jollof rice, rocker of fierce shoes, queen of the Jones Kingdom, and taker of stages. It's Nigerian Noble, Labi Ajayi Jones.
That might be the best intro I've ever gotten.
Honey, I don't think there are better words than to introduce you, than using your own words. If you don't know what I'm talking about, get her book, Professional Troublemaker. It's going to change your life. I've said this, I think, thrice, but thank you for that book. Thank you for becoming an author and writing your truth, and that's kind of feeling like our truth.
I mean, I felt like I was on an assignment to do it, so thank you for receiving it.
Fantastic. So we've got some questions here from many of your South African fans. Mpo Moreke wants to know, why does society frown on women for choosing themselves?
Rolls eyes.
What a question.
Yes. That's a great question. And it's, I mean, part of it is about patriarchy. It's that, you know, the world is used to trying to step on our necks for other people to thrive. And we've been programmed and told that us choosing ourselves is selfish, when really it is necessary. You know, men are not given the same type of pressures as we given. Like, we're told we're supposed to nurture and flail ourselves for the well-being of everybody else. And I'm just like, why? Why do we have to constantly be self-sacrificial to be enough? So I think it's up to us now to kind of reject that expectation. It is up to us to be like, no, I'm not gonna sacrifice my life for somebody else's well-being, because I was not born and given this gift of breath just for the sake of people pleasing and honoring other people. Like, if I'm not honoring myself, I'm not doing my job. So I think now, especially like Gen Z, I think they're going to be the generation that really shows us what it's like for women to constantly choose themselves over whatever the world wants us to do.
Choose yourself over and over again. Patricia Tola wants to know, how do you change your perspective and escape from the corner of defeat?
How do you change your perspective? Well, when you take in new information, new experiences, you have a right to change your opinions, change your stance, change who you are. And I think it's being open to evolution, being not so change averse. And I think we are afraid of change, of course, because we're like, we don't know what comes with it. But I think we were born to change. We were born to grow. Like, who you are now is not who you're going to be in 5 years. It's not who you were 5 years ago. And it's not that you're constantly changing your personality. It's that you're constantly changing your ideas. You are deepening your experiences. You have more input to now do something with. So I think just understanding that change is not just something to fear, it's something to welcome. And then when you do, you change, you know, kind of how you're approaching situations. You might have more experience that allow a situation to be easier. So example, like if you go from making 35,000 to making 100,000, you're gonna have to change how you're handling that money. You might have to change, you know, you might have to even change some of the people around you, because the people who loved your 35,000 might not appreciate your 100,000 or might want what you have. So I think it's just all about constant change, and don't be afraid of it.
Embrace change.
Leratu Mofikeng wants to know, I find it difficult to define myself as a professional troublemaker because of my workplace environment and expectations. What is the first step to breaking out of this mold?
You know, I think about a professional troublemaker as somebody who's a disruptor for good. You know, it's not that you're looking for chaos. It's not like you are, you know, saying the hard things just because you want to make the room uncomfortable. You are literally in the room to elevate it. So troublemakers, professional troublemakers, good troublemakers, you know, are really people who are like, if I'm in the room, I'm going to show up in my best way possible. I'm going to make sure whatever happens in the room is something I can be proud of. So even if you don't wear the label, you can still move in the way knowing that you are somebody who's speaking the truth. You are calling out the thing that's not okay. You are trying to find ways to use your power, whatever your power is, to make that room better. So a lot of people, of course, find it hard to hold the title or to be like, oh my God, I am one. But you can be a troublemaker in a lot of ways, not even just the loud ways. You can be the person that's using collaboration to make sure the person in the room is being heard. You know, you might be the person who has to make a phone call to make sure somebody's raise goes through. All of that is necessary.
Lindu Kuhle wants to know, how do you get yourself out of a mental slump when it gets tough?
Well, one of the ways I do that is I listen to music. I have a professional troublemaker playlist. Yes. Like, sometimes you just need music to like hype you up. You need, something to tell you, take on the day, you good. That's one way. Two, I'll even show you. I'm a fan of Post-it notes. Okay.
So nice and colorful.
Yeah, right. I got the colorful ones recently. And you can put them at your computer screen or something that you're seeing every day, an affirmation that you might want to see. I'm always going to win. I'm enough. I got this. Just so even if you're not paying attention to it, it's kind of there to just like take in whenever you need. And I'm also a fan of calling people in moments that's tough. Call your friend, call your family member who hypes you up. The person who goes, wait, what? What's the problem? Oh, no, you got this. Surround yourself with things and people who can infuse power in you, especially in those moments, that people who can loan you courage. Read a good book, I wanted my book to be the thing that also helps people get out of slumps. When you read a chapter and you go, okay, understood. I know the assignment. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do what I got to do. So I think sometimes you do have to look outside of yourself to get out of those mental slumps. But how you read Maoriki, if I read that, if I have a mental slump, I feel gassed up. So, write yourself one and have something to report back to for those moments, like you're in case of emergency box.
I mean, I feel hyped up after reading your Riki, eh? It's so good. And I'm so happy that you teach us how to do it in your book. Also loving this question from Sisipo Sojola saying, how do you own your failures as much as you do your success? And I mean, that's something we spoke about today at length. It's easy to talk about our successes, but how do we also almost in a way celebrate everything that we've been through?
So I think failure actually teaches you more than success does. Because when you win, you're like, yes, I already knew what I needed to do and I did that thing. When you fall flat on your face, you learn that something was broken or something was not all the way right, and then you learn that it needed to be fixed. I think failure is only failure if you didn't learn anything from it, if nothing grander came from it. When we fall on our face, when we make the wrong decision, say the wrong thing, we have an opportunity to learn something new and say like, oh, what did not work in that moment? What did I need to adjust? And instead of seeing failure as this grand, embarrassing moment, I think we can reposition it as, yeah, no, that hurt. I definitely fell flat on my face, but out of it, I learned these 3 things. And I'm going to move forward knowing these 3 things and doing something different. So failure is not one of those things to necessarily be humiliated by. I think use it as a stepping stone. Use it as a growth opportunity, and understand that you are part of a global club of people who have failed and risen from it and done something great from it. Because I just don't feel like anybody great or anybody who's done anything of impact has just won. No, everybody has a story of the moment or the moments of the or the multiple times that they failed. All of us do. That's why it's called like the hero's journey. Right? Nobody wants to talk about just like, oh, the one person who had it figured out all their lives and then nothing went wrong along the way. No. People want to know when you fell, how did you come from it?
Yes.
And so it's a badge of honor.
Any questions for Lovey from the panel?
I've got one. Hi, Lovey. I'm a big fan. I
How
follow
much
you.
of a fan?
Huge. I follow you on Instagram and LinkedIn, everywhere. And I feel that you're a big source of inspiration. So when I'm feeling down, I go to your page and I read some of the inspirational things that you post, on your, especially on your Instagram page. So to all the ladies, the women that are watching you right now, where do you go for your source of inspiration, especially on Instagram? What are those profiles and pages that you think that we should be following just to get more inspired as women?
Yes, I follow a lot of therapists on Instagram.
Okay.
Because I think they just always offer great insight. And sometimes their posts will go, "Ooh, that just hit me in my chest." You know, one of those therapists is Nidra Tawwab. And it's Nedratawwab. Nidra is a therapist, and she actually just came out with her first book this year called Set Boundaries. And she's just a brilliant mind. I love following her account. Every single day feels like I'm in a mini therapy session when I see her drop something. Another therapist that's really dope is Lisa Olivera, Olivera. Another one. Like, she is constantly posting these gems. I follow just a lot of Black women who are, Lisa's not Black, but like I follow a lot of Black women who just living life out loud, learning their lessons, sharing it along the way. My girl Myleek is also somebody else who I love to follow. Like, her posts are so vulnerable. She talks about parenting while being a CEO and while just being this woman who's learning and growing every day. So yeah, I follow some really good people. And I just recently posted about how, like, do not follow anybody who stresses you out on social media. Do not do it. Just unfollow them. It's not personal. Just know that you can
I love
your
that.
time.
It's not
Boundaries.
personal.
It's not personal. Boundaries.
It's not personal. It doesn't mean I hate you. It doesn't mean I don't like you. It just means your posts are not doing what they need to do for me. You know, and I always tell people, even if I'm the one that's stressing you out, unfollow me. Don't hate follow anybody. Just curate your social media so it's one less place where you have to deal with input that you don't want.
I love that, the power of curation. Last question, Lovey, this one from Ilse Steenkamp. She wants to, or she says, I am an introvert working in an extroverted environment. How can I use my introverted nature to my advantage? Love this question.
So I might shock some people with this, but I'm also an introvert.
What?
Okay, I am.
Everyone just went like, what? What you mean, Lovey?
I am absolutely an introvert, like all day, every day. Like, so it's not that I'm not social and it's not that I'm shy. It's that I give people my energy and then I have to retreat to like recharge. So I actually really enjoy my own company. I don't love really big parties unless it's like mine that I'm throwing because I know everybody there. And I prefer small, intimate spaces. And I am a very public person, but I usually have really strong boundaries. And again, you don't see me at a lot of events, you know, like, and I think that's by design. So how you can thrive in an environment with a bunch of extroverts is knowing the moments when you have to retreat, truly. You know, knowing when you have to turn the camera off on Zoom, knowing when you have to say, hey, I cannot come to that thing for a whole hour. I can come for 15 minutes. And then you infuse all your energy and then you walk away. So, yeah, I mean, you know, just create your strong boundaries. Understand that introversion is not a bad thing. Like, we always hear that extroverts are social. And I'm like, no, you can be a social introvert. But the power of introverts is like, we don't grab energy from everybody else. Like, we create our own energy and then we give it to other people. And I think that's a gift, is that we are giving people our energy as opposed to taking people's. Yeah.
Powerful.
That's powerful. Thank you so much, Lovey. Lonwabu, Innocentia, Bachi, Mpomoreke, and Natalie February. Congratulations. And now, are you ready for the grand prize? We're all about giving women the tools and advice to have them own their success. And what could be better than having a one-on-one session with a success coach to make that all happen? To close us off, do we have to announce one big last winner? What is that big name? Can someone whisper it into my ear? Nishani Narain. Congratulations.